Welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Javon Harrington, and today we're going to be doing the Anime X Marvel Phase 2, the Spiderverse Saga recap and review. Similar to what we did in Phase 1 with the review of the Heroes of the Multiverse, or the Darkhold Saga, as it was called in Phase 1, we're going to be recapping all the stories from Phase 2. Now, this being the Spiderverse, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do. There were a lot of things that I couldn't do. So with this recap, more or less, I'm going to break down basically a quick summary of each story and event and kind of give some of my synopsis on why I made what I made, why I did what I did. And I'll tell you whether or not the series is going to be continuing into the future. Now, again, a lot of this depends on you guys. You know, if you want a series to continue on, then even after this phase is over, like, keep sharing the videos, you know, keep liking, commenting, all that good stuff, because when time comes, when I see if a series needs to continue or not, you know, if it's grown over time, then, you know, I'll consider it. But when a series doesn't really grow, then I kind of just leave it there, and I might just let it, you know, let sleeping dogs, you know, be where they lie. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's recap. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So first things first, we need to talk about the start of the Spider-Verse, or how it all began. And it starts with this character from a mini-series that I made during the event of Phase 1. It's from the story, What If Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2 Became the Superior Spider-Man? And the title is self-explanatory. From the Tobey Maguire universe of Spider-Man, in this particular universe, towards the end of the movie, Doc Ock is assisted by Spider-Man in helping to destroy the machine, machine using the tritium from destroying the city, and both Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus drag the machine down into the river, the Hudson River, and when the explosion occurs, you know, as a result, the strange phenomena where Doc Ock finds himself in Peter Parker's body, and he basically goes on in this universe as the Superior Spider-Man. Now, because of that, things changed in this universe from the original. For one, he ended up fighting against Dr. Connors, who became the Lizard, as well as meeting the likes of Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, and fighting against the likes of Sandman and Carnage. Now, because of this unique Spider-Man of sorts, and given his intelligence, this Spider-Man is recruited by the Illuminati that you see in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Now, the reason why this is important is because during the events of Heroes of the Multiverse of Madness movie, when Loki recruited all of the heroes from Phase 1 to form an Avengers team to help him stop the Scarlet Witch, who had been using the Darkhold to basically travel between worlds and do stuff like that, they end up meeting the Illuminati, the original Illuminati from the movie, only this Spider-Man was there. So if you're wondering, this Spider-Man is aware of ReZero Spider-Man, so they've met before. Anyway, because of my Avengers team being there when the Scarlet Witch goes on a rampage, the Illuminati actually ends up surviving and not being killed by the Scarlet Witch's onslaught. And, you know, the team, they went on to defeat the Scarlet Witch, all that good stuff, everyone returns home. But because this Illuminati team survives, it means they have to face more dangers. And one of those dangers ends up being Kang the Conqueror. Kang eventually arrives to the sanctuary of the Illuminati and basically does what the Scarlet Witch couldn't, leaving if any of them to survive. I won't confirm or deny who survives, but we all know who does, that being Superior Spider-Man. He basically manages to escape the battle, and he starts building a team of his own. And because of how the technology works, he tries to recruit the original Avengers team, but he has a hard time locating them, and the only people he can locate are fellow Spider-Men like himself. Basically, for the Illuminati in their form of technology, unless they have pinpoint accuracy, their basic multiversal traveling like tools, it allows them to find like-minded individuals. So, for example, Reed Richards has an easier time finding other Reed Richards across the multiverse as opposed to other specific people. So it's easier for Reed to find another Reed as opposed to trying to find a different alternate Spider-Man or an alternate Hulk, just for example. So for Superior Spider-Man, it's easier to find other Spider-Men than trying to find other people like Ghost Rider Issei, because he's already an anomaly among all other anomalies of Ghost Riders. So it's harder to try to find Belle Crenel Thor or JoJo's Captain America or Iron Man Deku. Although he actually did come close to finding Iron Man Deku, he actually ends up pulling in Purveyor Parker, or Indian Spider-Man, who in my universe exists in the My Hero Academia Armored Adventures universe. What if Deku was Iron Man? He's essentially a quirk user who has the quirk Spider. He's from India, and he's actually a transfer student who's getting ready to go and attend UA. So you'll actually be seeing him when we continue What If Deku Was Iron Man. We're actually going to be seeing him in that series, but literally before he goes to UA, before he goes to Japan from India, he ends up getting recruited into the Spiderverse event. So that's kind of like a little Easter egg for you guys on that front. But all in all, this is sort of like to explain how the Spiderverse got started. Essentially, Kang is trying to destroy any organization, any group that can oppose him. The Illuminati was such a group, and now it's up to Superior Spider-Man to form a team to try to combat and go up against Kang. If you're wondering which version of Kang this is, specifically, this is the Kang that you saw in Ant-Man Quantumania or Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. So this is the version of Kang they're going up against. But instead of this Kang facing off against Ant-Man and an army of ants, he's essentially facing off against an army of Spider-Men. First, we have Kaigasama Love is War, Queen of Thieves. What If Shirogane Was Spider-Man, Seasons 1 and 2. This is a combination of Kaigasama Love is War along with the PlayStation video game version of Spider-Man. This playing off of the dynamic between the PlayStation's version of Spider-Man and Black Cat being substituted with Miyuki Shirogane and Kaguya Shinomiya, two students who, while they have love and affection for one another, don't know that their alter egos play on different sides of the law. On top of that, this mythos also includes a little bit of aspects from the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, that being in the form of Ava Ayala, who is the White Tiger from that series, and also plays a role in this universe as well as the White Tiger. This series covers seasons 1 and 2 of Kaguya-sama Love is War, and the season ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger of sorts. While Shirogane is recruited by the Superior Spider-Man, he also had recently gained the Spider-Man symbiote. While that will be addressed in later installments of the Spider-Verse, it does pay to see, will the love story of Kaguya and Shirogane prevail, or will their alter egos and their different lifestyles keep them and drive them apart? Then next, we have Spy X Family Project Web, What If Lloyd Forger Was Spider-Man Noir, Season 1. This, covering the events of Spy X Family Season 1, does the story of what if Lloyd Forger wasn't just Agent Twilight, but also had the powers of Spider-Man. While he didn't normally address himself as Spider-Man in this world, it was a title that was attributed to him by accident. He now plays 3 different roles: the role of Lloyd Forger the father, Spider-Man the hero of Ostania, and Agent Twilight, the spy from the West. It also plays on other mythos in the Marvel universe as well, including the Black Widow mythos, not just in the comics, but also from the MCU movie, taking different aspects in that degree and rolling it over onto your side, as your Forture's training isn't just that of being the Thorn Princess, but she also can attribute her training as a former Black Widow herself. All in all, the main story and plot still applies. 3 individuals trying to hide their secret identities and who they truly are, and the lifestyles that they live. Excuse me about that, my voice just sort of cracked. On top of that, there also are some other cameo characters in this series as well, including a version of Madam Web, along with Felicia Hardy, who is also an agent, but she does run her own shop called The Black Cat. There's also Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton, who also make roles in this series as well, and you'll be seeing more of them when this series continues on even further in the near future. Then next up, we had Kill la Kill, The Web of Life. What if Spider-Gwen wasn't Kill la Kill? This story is a combination of the Kill la Kill story along with having a few aspects from the Spiderverse movie play a role in this series as well. That being in the additions of Hobie Brown and Gwen Stacy, who more or less find themselves getting wrapped up with Ryuko in the story of Kill la Kill, and with Gwen's own story playing a role in the series as well. It's more so about Gwen attempting to find her own place in the world and in the grand scheme of things, with the wacky and zany and even some of the tragedy that occurs also. I also wanted this series to be a reflection of the women of the Spider-Man mythos. As such, you could see why this series was the most female-heavy casting lead. Well, with Kill la Kill already being a female-heavy driven series with a lot of strong male characters as well, you had the likes of Gwen, who has the role of Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider, as she's referred to, and you have Mako Mankansho, who also takes the role of Penny Parker, but more so using the Spider-Verse version of the Spider-Mech, or Spider Armor. You have Ryuko, who takes the role of Spider-Woman Jessica Drew as inspiration. And you have Satsuki Kiryoin, who also takes the role of Silk, another prominent female spider character in the Spider-Man mythos also. And Hobie Brown is also in the series as well, reprising his role as Spider-Punk. All in all, this series was something that I thought would work best with Spider-Gwen's aesthetic. And while Kill la Kill doesn't have a season 2, I do have a role for Gwen to play, a very prominent role in the Spider-Verse, but that's something you'll have to see towards the end of the series itself to see how it all plays out, but keep that in mind. Next up, we had Konosuba, The Adventures of SpiderHam. What if Kazuma was SpiderHam? Seasons 1 and 2. Definitely more on the wacky side in terms of the Spider-Man mythos. Making Kazuma SpiderHam was more so for the comedy aspect of the Spider-Man series, just to show how crazy, wacky, and zany the story of Spider-Man can often be and turn into. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with SpiderHam originally. Given his origin and nature, I thought putting Kazuma in the position of SpiderHam, where he gets to sort of fulfill his role of being the hero he's always wanted to be, but maybe not in the full way he envisioned himself. Seeing as how Kazuma has to transform into a pig humanoid in order to make use of his power. Between seasons 1 and 2, I wanted to use villains that aren't commonly used in the Spider-Man mythos. Because when you think about it, Spider-Man, I would say next to a character like Batman, has such a deep and unique rogues gallery of villains that don't often get the spotlight and shine. So I wanted to try to use versions of those villains in different aspects of Spider-Man series, and this was no different. With season 1, we used the Jack-o'-lantern, who is basically Verdia, the Headless Knight, that gets turned into the Jack-o'-lantern and uses a flying glider of sorts to rain down his pumpkin bombs. While many would say that he's more of a discount version of the Green Goblin, I think the Jack-o'-lantern is actually a unique villain, and I think with Kazuma, it definitely sets the two apart. And in season 2, we also had the likes of Hydro-Man, who played the role of a savant trying to seduce and control Aqua in order to steal her powers. Also, one overarching foe I wanted to use from the SpiderHam comics was a villain known as the King Pig, which is basically King Pig but as a pig man, who kind of takes a liking to Kazuma because of his ability to turn into a pig. And I also used a little bit of inspiration for King Pig in terms of how he acts and how he talks, using inspiration from the likes of The Godfather and The Sopranos. But all in all, I had a lot of fun making this series. It fell off a little bit in terms of its viewership and popularity, but with the recent additions of Konosuba, the Explosive World, the Megami spinoff, and with the announcement that season 3 of Konosuba is coming in the near future, maybe you might be seeing SpiderHam a lot sooner than you think. Then next, we had Neon Genesis Evangelion, The Spider's Thesis. What if Shinji Ikari was Spider-Man? Or to be more specific, the Japanese Spider-Man. Now, to say that I had a lot of fun making this series would definitely be an understatement. As a lot of you guys know, I am a big Evangelion fan. So whenever I have an opportunity to make an Evangelion story, I'm gonna take it. Now, with this story, I sort of combined a lot of different ideas and mythos of not only Spider-Man, but also of Japanese entertainment and culture, as the two series actually do play off of one another rather well. That being that Evangelion as a whole is actually inspired by the likes of Japanese Spider-Man. And then you have Penny Parker, who plays a role in this series as well, who's actually an inspiration from Evangelion. So you kind of see how the two series go hand in hand. But I would say, along with the Kill la Kill story, this story also has a high number of spider characters, 5 to be specific, along with Kill la Kill. Shinji being Japanese Spider-Man, Rei being Spider-Girl, basically the Mayday version from the 90s comics. You have Asuka, who plays the Spider-Woman or Arachne. Julia Carpenter's Spider-Man. I think that those two stylishly and aesthetically look very similar to one another, so they would work very well as a crossover of sorts. You have Toji Suzuhara, who he doesn't play a Spider-Man in particular, but he does use the MK1 Spider-Man armor, the silver and black armor that Spider-Man used. So I just gave him that sort of aesthetic. And then finally, you have Penny Parker, who exists in this universe as an Eva pilot, and she more or less just uses the spider armor, but not the Spiderverse armor, the original spider armor, the one that's inspired by Eva Unit 1, actually. And in this universe, I even took a little inspiration with Power Rangers and how I dealt with the angel threats. That being that instead of the angels just appearing in their giant angel form, they actually start off possessing humans and turning them into mutated creatures. And then once you kill them, they end up growing into their real angel form. Kind of a little bit of a playoff of the Power Ranger, series where you fight the monster, you kill the monster, then the monster grows into its giant monster form, and then you have to use a giant mech to beat it. So that's kind of how the Evangelions worked in this universe. But all in all, I'm very surprised with how popular this series became, because honestly, even though I love doing Evangelion, I didn't think it would get the level of support that it has. But this series was one of the more popular ones here on the channel. So I don't know if that's a sign for me to just keep doing this series, or if you guys want more Evangelion. But hey, if you guys want more Eva stories, I got plenty of them on deck, like ready to be written out. So like, don't threaten me with a good time writing an Eva story. But still, all in all, I enjoyed making this story, and I can't wait to do more in the future. And next, we had the more polarizing series here on the channel, that being Jujutsu Kaisen, The Spider's Curse, What If Miles Morales Was Sukuna's Vessel, Season 1. Now, with this series, more so than anything else, I would say that this is going to be one of the Spider-Man series that kind of carries the Spider-Man brand on this channel into the future. Now, with this story, the title, it's all self-explanatory. Instead of Yuji Itadori becoming Sukuna's vessel, it's actually Miles Morales. In this universe, Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but Spider-Man wasn't what you thought he was. No, Peter wasn't a hero. Well, he was a hero, but he wasn't a hero known to the public. He was a Jujutsu sorcerer who had a power called the Cursed Spider. This happened when Peter was bitten at a young age by a spider that was a cursed spirit. It basically gave him all the Spider-Man powers that you associate with him, but it also gave him the ability to use and manipulate cursed energy on a high level. Now, here's the thing about the power of the Cursed Spider. The Cursed Spider power basically works like how One for All works in My Hero Academia, where the power, it can be passed down to another user, and it basically gets stronger the more it's passed down. Now, the story plays out 6 months before the events of Season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen, but it also takes place 6 months after the events of the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 movie, with Yuta, and I actually covered that story here on the channel as well in a tie-in story, along with a few other tie-ins. But that's kind of like the in-between point where the series sort of began. Peter was trying to find one of Sukuna's fingers that somehow made its way to the United States. It just happened to be where Miles was when he was in the subway underground, and the fight, it ends up resulting in Peter battling against 6 special grade cursed spirits, which are the highest power level for cursed spirits. Peter, he kills all 6 of them, exorcising them, but dies in the process, and Miles ends up swallowing Sukuna's finger to stop it from being eaten by the cursed spirits, and he becomes Sukuna's vessel. But on top of that, before Peter died, he also passed the power down to Miles. So Miles not only becomes Sukuna's vessel, but he also becomes the second Spider-Man. Now, because of this, Yuji Itadori does not become Sukuna's vessel, but he does train under Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, who exists in this universe. And while I won't go into detail about it here, when you watch the series, it all becomes explanatory. In terms of the heroes that I use in this universe, it's more so a combination of Spiderverse, at least when it comes to Peter and Miles, along with using, say, more street level kind of heroes from the Marvel universe. Heroes like a Punisher, who's actually a lot younger and similar to Peter, was from the United States, became a Jujutsu sorcerer after going through a great tragedy when he lost his family, that being his girlfriend and his newborn baby, when they were killed by a cursed spirit, and then he vows to kill all cursed spirits. So he basically becomes like the Punisher, but instead of killing humans, he's basically the Punisher for cursed spirits. You still have Nobara, who plays a role in this story as well, being trained by the Sorcerer Supreme of this world, who is Dr. Voodoo instead. But again, I go into detail about how the Sorcerer Supreme title works in the Spider-Man mythos of this universe when you watch the series as well. But all in all, this is going to be one of the series that will carry the Spider-Man brand into the future. We covered the events of season 1 along with the first 5 episodes of season 2 that was made into the OVA, If This Be My Destiny, covering the Gojo Past arc where Peter played a role in that as well, along with the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 movie that is Maximum Curse, What If Yuta Was Venom? So in this universe, Yuta not only ends up becoming as powerful as he does, but he also ends up becoming this world's Venom. But he's on the side of good. Also, another thing to key in on in this universe, when Miles, quote unquote, dies during the incident where they fight against the special grade, before passing away, he actually passed down the power of the cursed Spire to Megumi Fushiguro, and he ends up taking over as the next wielder of the cursed Spider. But Miles, he does still retain his Spire power. He just doesn't have the cursed Spire with him. Again, you know, that one for all sort of dichotomy with the power itself. So technically in this world, there are 2 Spider-Men, if you want to call them that being Miles and that being Fushiguro. Now, this series was a last minute, and I mean a last minute addition to the Spider-Verse lineup. But because it was a mini-series in and of itself, just 4 parts, didn't go too long, I thought it was no harm in including it along with the Spider-Verse story itself. That being Inuyashiki, The Last Web of Hope, What If Ichiro Was Cyborg Spider-Man? Now, essentially, the story plays out exactly the same as the original Inuyashiki, just with a little bit of Marvel overtones, that being with the old man Ichiro, who not only has his cyborg powers, but he's also a very big comic fan. Now, I wanted this to sort of play into the whole responsibility, sort of wonder aspect of Spider-Man in and of itself. You know the old saying, with great power also comes great responsibility. And this series is pretty much the embodiment of that. You have 2 individuals who are given great power, but they use their power in very different ways. You have the likes of the young man in this series, whose name I forgot, unfortunately, who, let's just say, does not use his powers for the good of mankind at all. Instead, pretty much tries to become the villain with a good old god complex, and pretty much takes on the traits of various Spider-Man villains. And I used the Super Adaptoid as his framework because the Super Adaptoid, he takes on the personalities and the traits of heroes and villains. And in a recent Spider-Man story, he took on basically the traits of like all of Spider-Man's villains, or like a Sinister Six all rolled into one kind of being. So I kind of wanted to show the dichotomy between the 2, about how while one takes in the traits of evil, the other one takes on the traits of good, as seen with Ichiro becoming Spider-Man. Although, to be more specific, he's a cyborg, or a robot, so he's more of cyborg Spider-Man than anything else. But even still, though, it was a fun little mini-series. It's not going to continue on into anything else into the future. I mean, unless you guys wanted to, I could probably whip something up. But all in all, it was just a fun little mini-series that I had a lot of fun writing, to say the least. Definitely a lot of good dialogue in this story that I enjoyed making. So this was another addition into the Spider-Verse as well. Safe to say, this series was probably my most ambitious that I made here on the channel. That being Imminence in Shadow, The Shadow's Web, What If Sid Kagano Was Spider-Man, Season 1. To be more specific, this is a play on the Spider Chasm, that's Ben Reilly's Spider-Man, from the Dark Web Spider-Man comics. Now, when I say this story is low-key a hodgepodge of a lot of different Marvel concepts, like it truly is. First, you have Spider Chasm, which is a recent addition to the Spider-Man mythos, like very, very recent, along with the dark web comic series. And it's not something that's commonly known or commonly used, concepts like the Red Goblin and the Red Queen, but I thought that this would work in this Spider-Man sort of like world as well. And with this series, it's more of a deconstruction of what Spider-Man is and what Spider-Man should stand for more than anything else. You know the original story of Eminence in Shadow. Sid Kagano gets isekai to another world and basically thinks everything is a game. Well, in this version, he knows that everything is real because everything is real. However, the contrast, or what makes him stand out, is how he carries himself. Because in this universe, there were other Spider-Men, quote unquote, and women that came before him. But while they were good heroes, Sid hates the idea of heroes. He wants to become something greater, something that can last forever. Instead of being the hero, he wants to be the shadow of truth and justice, something that can't be controlled, that can't be manipulated, something that can't be corrupted, kind of becoming like his own symbol, if you will. Now, in terms of different Marvel mythos that I wanted to add to this, I play heavy into the dark web comics using concepts like the Red Queen, Red Goblin, Gold Goblin. There is a version of the Sinister Six, except they're called the Six Saints of Midgar. And they're a combination of the Sinister Six and the Thunderbolts. That's why there's a Red Hulk in this world, why some of the villains are technically seen as the heroes, but you kind of get an idea of how this story is playing out, to say the least. And I also use some of the Captain Britain lore as well, although in this universe he's called Captain Midgar. But I use the lore from Captain Britain and more of the UK side of the Marvel Universe. Characters like Morgana Le Fay, who kind of plays into the whole Arthurian, King Arthur, wizards, knights, dragons, all that good stuff. But that's basically sort of the idea or the mythos that I'm playing with this series. And it's just something that's a unique thing to write, It has the Spider-Man story, it plays into the Spider-Man character and different aspects of the character, but it's as non-traditional as it gets. And the fact that it's been one of the more popular series, you guys have really turned up for it. You guys have really seemed to like it. And with season 2 just around the corner, you never know. If you guys want to see it, you might be seeing more of the Shadows Web. Moving on now, as we're getting down towards the end, this is a series that, again, I had no idea you guys would actually be so invested in a series like this. This one, Rosario Vampire, Scarlet Knight, What If Skune Was Spider-Man, Season 1. This is a combination of Rosario Vampire along with the Spider-Man, Kane Parker sort of lore and mythos. And more or less, it plays into the more monster side of the Marvel Universe, like the Marvel monsters. Characters like, Dracula, Werewolf by Night, even though I haven't used that character yet. You kind of get the idea. Ghost Rider, things of that nature. Like, the Marvel monsters really come to play in this series, with Skune discovering his own monster-like origins as a Spider-Man or a spider-like monster himself. And all in all, I would say with this series compared to many others is that you already know about the reception between the anime and the manga of Rosario Vampire. So with this series, what I chose to do was, since season 1 is pretty much canon, I basically chopped season 1 in half. I covered the first half of season 1, and that's this season 1. And if I continued, I would cover the second half of season 1, which would be this story's season 2. And based off of the reception, the way you guys have been turning out for it, you might be getting season 2. playing into the whole like dual identities with the whole Spider-Man series. This kind of plays into the whole Spire clone saga, with Spider-Man wondering if he's the real Spider-Man, if he's a clone and stuff like that. But it's more so the duality between monster and man, and can the two kind of coexist? Because you have Skune on one side, who's more of the man. You have other characters like Patton Parnell, who plays more of the monster in this series also. The overarching villain of this series is the Jackal. He plays a big role in this series, as you'll see if the series is to continue on. All in all, I definitely enjoyed writing it. Definitely had to do a lot more original stuff with this series. But you guys have turned up for it and enjoyed it, so I'm grateful for that as well. And now, the final story, Date Alive, Spirit of the Spider. What If Shido was Spider-Man 2099, Season 1. This series in particular is very important to the Spider-Verse. The reason being is that moving forward, in terms of the Spider-Verse aspect of this series, or at least in terms of the overall Spider-Mans that I've made, Shido is pretty much going to be stepping into the forefront as like the main lead of the Spider-Verse side of things. As you all know, this whole series, when it began, we started with what if Spider-Man was in ReZero? MCU Spider-Man to be specific. And he's kind of been at the forefront of the whole anime Marvel series as a whole. But with ReZero, with the new seasons coming along the way, his role in the overall multiverse, or in the grand scheme of things, it's gonna kind of go on the back foot. Not that we're not gonna get more stories about him, in his world and everything else. It's just that he's not gonna be, front and center like he used to be. That's where Shido is pretty much going to step in. This world being a combination of Date Alive along with Spider-Man 2099 and the Marvel 2099 universe, mythos, and lore, things of that nature. This version of Spider-Man, Shido Itsuka to be specific, he's gonna kind of be like the litmus test, if you will, to see if he can carry on that mantle. Because I was looking at different sort of Spider-Man, different sort of characters who I thought could be the face of like the Spider-Verse. And I figured Shido, Spider-Man 2099, he's going to be the best choice. Because I think that for him and for MCU Spider-Man, they represent sort of the truer or the truest aspects of Spider-Man. All of them do. They all play on different parts and different ideals. But when we get to Spider-Verse, you're going to see first and foremost how out of all of them, why Shido is kind of at the center of everything, why it all starts with him. Because it's actually going to be with Shido that the story actually starts. So, there's going to be a lot that comes in the near future. This series, like I've said before, a combination of Spider-Man 2099, Date Alive, definitely one of my more ambitious crossovers, but was definitely well received by you guys. So I thank you all for that. And for all the series, whether some did better than others, in the grand scheme of things, I'm just grateful that you all chose to watch and to stick around for as long as you have. So it's really appreciated, and I thank you all. Thank you for your support. Thank you for getting us as far as we have gotten, and for everything that's to come out now and in the future. I will continue to look to you all for support. So again, thank you. This video, we're going to be wrapping it up now because I'm starting to lose my voice just a little bit, but I'm going to be doing fine. Just got to persevere. As for tomorrow's schedule, we're going to be doing a trailer video. Well, not a trailer video, but sort of like a little intro video special I'm trying to get that made up. Don't know if it'll be out in time. And on Thursday and Friday, we'll be doing Spiderverse. We'll be doing parts 1 and 2, Thursday and Friday, back to back respectively. And then after that, phase 2 comes to an end. So all in all, I thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. As always, you make the channel grow. You make the core grow. I'm Javon Harrington, signing off, and I'll see you next time.